Yeah, so we're just going to get to, again, this quote: skill in action. True courage is not about knowing when to take a life, but knowing when to spare one. So if people have seen this, have people seen this movie before, The Hobbit? It's quite a famous one. It's really good, and The Hobbit is really interesting because it talks about how, I mean, there's many themes in this book, but some of the things that are pertinent to, to the teachings of the Gita are, it talks about different types, different classes of people, and how different classes of people can work together for a harmonious, functioning society. I also think of it very much speaks to cooperation and how to work in teams. It speaks to the teacher and the student and their relationship. Again, really some amazing themes that occur in this book. But again, this principle here of knowing when to act and knowing when not to act is our theme. And so again, we said the question is not about not acting, but really the true question in this chapter is, what is the best way to act, and how do we act with skill? And so these are really the questions that we hope to answer through this viewing of this chapter. And that brings us to our first question that I wanted us to reflect on. So in the recent past, I'm looking for us all to recall a time where we acted unskillfully, right? And I wanted us to go back to that action and try to recall what it felt like, what perhaps the result was, and any behaviors or thought patterns that led to that action. So we're trying to identify a time, and we're going to flip it, and we're going to also talk about a time where there was a skillful action. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to, so I want everyone just to take a snapshot of that. And then I'm also going to have, again, the same thing is I want everyone to think of what their idea is of a skillful action. And again, recalling a time recently where their action was skillful. So again, how did it feel? What was the result? And what were their behaviors? And again, I want us to do this compare and contrast for ourselves, but also have us try to identify within ourselves, what do we deem a skillful action? So I'll just go ahead and give everyone a couple minutes to think about that, and then we're going to pair up into the breakout rooms and discuss. So please go ahead, and then I'll just get the breakout rooms ready.
Rikin, hi, Avantika here.
Yes.
Uh, do you think it makes a difference if I take from the phone because I haven't got the breakout room invite?
Oh, yeah, because I'm just putting it out there.
Okay, okay, sorry.
No
I think I
problem.
jumped ahead
Just,
of the.
no, just giving everyone a couple of minutes. So when you're ready, please join one of the rooms.
Hello, Christina. All these
Avani, you
people-
know what I found yesterday? I was at home with my parents, and I've had this book for many years. It's a book we've been reading about. This book.
Die before dying. Oh.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what, it'd be nice to look. I mean, some of the quotes we've been talking about are so amazing that I thought I gotta, open this book up again.
Well, we can do that as the fourth book.
I know that's what I was making a point. Hello, everyone. Please, any reflection to share from the discussion? It was I gave us a little bit more time because I knew there was quite a bit to unpack. So hopefully there was some fruitful discussion. Does anyone have anything they wanted to reflect or share?
Why can I only see myself?
Please, Avantika.
Hey, so Christina and I had a brilliant discussion. We just unpacked what skillful action means to us, and we came at it from multiple angles. Christina really came up with some brilliant insights. So I apologize, I'm speaking for her. Please jump in, Christina, if any time that I'm misrepresenting you. But from our understanding, what we came in is to, anytime we come into the linear experience of human beings is that the bottom of one mountain the top of one mountain is going to be the bottom of the next one. So every time we are pursuing any kind of a goal or objective, at the beginning, it is something that is going to have some sort of unfamiliarity, so it's difficult to develop the skill for it. And skill for us, we defined as something which is effortless, something which comes with resilience to the environment. So regardless of what's happening, one is able to perform that, and also a certain level of mastery. But we put that in the context of the fact that in the linear human experience, there is so much novelty. And if one is to kind of rely on that, then the curve of developing skillful action can be quite a restrictive one. Because anytime you go into a new environment, unfamiliar environment, you have to start all over again. So we were discussing some of the things which kind of get in the way. One of them, of course, is blind spots. So whenever we come, like Arjuna, he was this really powerful archer, and he thought he was one of the best archers in the world, but ego became his blind spot because when he was on the battlefield, everything dissolved and all of that skill or mastery really couldn't. We were discussing people who are at very high positions or who achieve a certain level of skill in one area, perhaps could develop blind spots because they have sycophants, they have false fans, they have power distance, which kind of keeps them separated from the true picture. So we discussed the importance of a white belt mentality, importance of some of the most humble people who are at top of their fields. They keep going back and learning new skills every year so that they can stay in that student mentality and be learners all the time. And then to combat the linear curve of human achievement of skill, the non-linear or the exponentiality that one can develop in that is by constantly pushing yourself into greater exposure, greater diversity, greater unfamiliar situations all the time. So that's really what we discussed. And finally, what we discussed was the importance of dissolving the ego and not being attached to one's skillful action. And the example that comes to mind is those Buddhist monks who make these brilliant mandalas. And when it is done and it's perfected, they have spent days working on it. They just cleanse the whole thing and start afresh because they don't get attached to what laurels one has accomplished previously. So that is what we basically discussed.
Wow, there's some really great points there. Really great points. I was also, Avantika, when Avani and I were discussing, I was in reference to skillful action. For me, two things that came to mind, and you mentioned one of them was a sense of there should be some enthusiasm. We should feel some enthusiasm, which will help generate a level of consistency, right? I mean, with any skillful action, You know, making small steps forward and being patient, I think, is really important. But at the same time, we should have this enthusiasm to you know, to develop that consistency to be able to take up an action or to, you know, to learn something. Yeah, and that white belt mentality, I think, is really, really critical to that. One of the other things that Avni and I were discussing is that skillful action, and I think this helps address the blind spot area, is that the skillful action will always be in line with that that triad that I showed before, is that it'll overlap and have some input from either the wisdom texts from teachers and mentors and from other spiritual seekers. I think that's also really important because sometimes when it's unskillful, we've maybe sometimes gone down our narrow view and perhaps not looked at either universal principles or tenets, and also the action that necessarily might lead to the benefit for the greatest number of people. So those are some thoughts that came to mind that would also support skillful action.
Thanks.
Anyone else wanted to share anything on unskillful action or anything else from these two questions? Yeah, please, Tiffany.
So we kind of talked a lot about organization because I was feeling I was unorganized, and that was an unskillful action.
Yeah.
But it was funny because all the references that we got from it, like, you know, as we spoke about being organized and having our list and a checklist, and I said that, you know, discernment is a warrior's sword, because we have to discern what is important in our list and what is unimportant in our list. And it's based on past experiences, all these sorts of things. But what Hiba had said, she had a wonderful line for me. And she said that by being organized, it was allowing me to be more present.
Mm.
So the way we look at things like organization, sometimes you think, well, I have to get this done. And some of these little tasks, we know that they seem like menial tasks, but they are part of the process. And when we do, that skill itself of being organized allows the mind then to be more clear and then to be more focused and more present in the moment. So thank you, Hiba, for that.
Yeah, one of the suggestions that that some of us do who have a meditation practice is you actually keep a pencil and paper with you, and you write down some fleeting like ideas or to-dos that come to your mind. And what that allows you to do is to let it go and be like, okay, I have to remember this, and just opens up your brain to being present to, you know, what you're doing in the moment. So I really like that point about just, you know, when we're organized, it kind of helps invoke presence or greater presence, right?
And it's
That's
such
great.
a skill that, you know, I know we've all learned it, but it really is a key skill to be organized in time management for so many, you know, for health and for life. Because if you can get yourself focused and your time organized, the world is much more freeing then.
Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany, and thanks, Hiba, for sharing that. Hiba, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? No?
No, it was mainly these two ideas.
Good.
And you know, organization, it's really, I have been all the time working on it, but now I'm working in a different way. So we were speaking somehow the same language.
Oh, that's great. I'm noting this also down. Ajani, please, anything to share?
Yeah, I would say before I had a existential crisis during the summer of 2014, I'd say the vast majority of my actions and paradigms were unskillful. So I was mostly acting from the position of my childhood traumas, shame, various fears and insecurities. Even when I was engaged in seemingly positive or beneficial activities. So now that I have numerous frameworks and mental models of how to conduct myself skillfully in alignment with my Dharma and in alignment with my goals and values, the vast majority of my actions are skillful. and at the very least, I have an idea of how I ought to conduct myself. Whereas those were non-existent prior to 2014, especially. And when I spoke to Rita, we were discussing how to conduct ourselves skillfully when interacting with people that are in psychological pain and are projecting that pain onto us. So how do you deal with that, especially within the context of your relationships in friendships, in business, etc. And I find that I act more skillfully when I come across such projections today than I would have even a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's really great. It was reminding me of the point, Johnny, that, you know, sometimes the action itself is not the issue, as you were saying, but if we're really maybe not, if we're misaligned in being overly attached to the result or overly focused on the result, then it can also cloud, it can cloud the action as well. So I think what you're saying is, in that process of, for you to clarify, in that clarification and refining, there's been a lot more. It's also changed the action as well, right?
Right. And also, when I become fixated on a specific end goal or a desired result, it limits the possibilities. And those possibilities that I'm unaware of or refuse to look at may be better than the ideal that I have, that I'm fixated on. Using the language of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's plans are probably better for me than my own.
Mm-hmm. And so then it becomes about, like, how do we make those kind of change, shifts in our life to be able to align with certain principles, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing, and just even the progression that you've had. And I think we can all go back to parts of our life where, many of the actions that we were doing weren't, necessarily skillful. But, as you said, the opportunity to kind of be able to kind of pull back and reflect on, and that's why I wanted to try to align the action of what we identified with a feeling, and necessarily, if we can catch ourselves, what's happening potentially right before the action is done, then maybe we can catch sometimes our thought process also in the and be able to catch any sort of pattern that may be taking us down a certain road on multiple occasions that we may not see. So thank you for that. Anybody else wanted to share anything from these questions? Otherwise, we can move on to a couple of other points. All right, so we were talking about, again, these two questions. Now we're going to get into the three pieces of advice that Krishna has, and he breaks it down into kind of 3 steps of how we should approach skillful action. And I think these will resonate with all of us to some extent. I was talking to Avni when I mentioned this point: be true to our own nature. This is the first important step. And I was mentioning to Avni that oftentimes when for myself, unskillful action has resulted from when I've been overly concerned with the opinion of others and trying to please too many people at once, right? Because then there's a certain sense of insecurity and lacking confidence. But I think, again, if we're going back to who we know we are, our values, to me, that really can help solidify this point here of being true to our own nature. And again, this picture kind of describes it as, there may be a storm around us, but, being centered and grounded with what's important to us is really important. And again, this is why I feel that having a a daily practice of some type of a sadhana or daily practice of meditation, of reflection, is really important for this point, being true to our own nature. Otherwise, there's so many things coming at us. There's other people's goals, other people's values, and what society deems the direction we should be going in is constantly coming at us. So this is the first point that's made. The second step is let go of the fruits. And I always say that's easier said than done. But this is the second point that the step that Krishna makes in this process of skillful action. And the third is make your work an offering. So there's this concept if people have heard.
Sorry for interruption, but I didn't get the point. If you can explain it more for let go of the fruits.
Oh, yeah. So
sorry, for interruption.
No, that's fine. Letting go of the fruits means that we act without necessarily wanting to be totally fixated on the result that comes. So fruits just refer to the results of our actions. Yeah.
Okay.
So trying to be, and it does, and we're going to get into this by reading a section of the book. It doesn't mean that we're not wanting a positive outcome. It's just coming at our actions from the perspective of we are not always in control. And then the third element is make our work our offering. So there's this concept that I feel comes from the Bhagavad Gita. Work is worship, and it really means that we're trying to align not just our life, perhaps potentially outside of what we spend many of hours doing as our work, but we also make our work our worship. And I feel it doesn't always have to be external. Like it's really an internal shift by which we approach whatever we're doing, and this this idea of making our work an offering really helps us then move into a space where the Bhagavad Gita, it's very much about integrating our life and not feeling like we have different rooms, rooms that we're walking into our life. Okay, now I'm in the room of my spiritual life. Now I'm in the room of my work life. Now I'm in the room of my family life, or now I'm in the room of my, personal development life. It's really seeing integration of all these areas of life. And to me, this is what this, this concept speaks to. So looking at these 3 points, I wanted to just now read, again, we have a short section here from the book, but just going into now a little bit of more elaboration on these points, of these 3 points. We're each born with a particular nature, which allows us to make a unique contribution in the world. While we can spend so much of our life fighting ourselves, Krishna counsels Arjuna to be true to his nature. Beings must follow their nature. What can repression accomplish, she says. Rather than pretend we're someone else or try to be what others expect us to be, the first rule of karma yoga is to be true to our own nature. As Krishna observes, one's own path, even if imperfect, is better than another's followed perfectly. By carrying out action in accords with one's own nature, one doesn't go wrong. I wanted to read, this is, if everyone wanted to know, there's 2 verses in the Bhagavad Gita, there's 2 instructions that Krishna has in the Bhagavad Gita that repeat itself. And one of them is this point. And I'll share the verse specifically that speaks to this point, and it's 335. It's in the section of walk the path that's given to you. But the occupation given to you, though imperfect, is better than another's, even perfectly done. Defeat on one's own path is better, for another's path is dangerous. And so, to me, it comes back to the point of society, I think, very much tries to pull people in masses and trying to remove ourselves and really pursue what is to our strengths, our unique abilities, and to act in that on a consistent basis. is really hear what's given, because even if we can do necessarily someone else's job or function better, in fact, the journey of our soul and the path of on this dark night is sticking to what is, even what we may do imperfectly, but if it's true to our nature, that is in fact perfect. So again, I just wanted to, review this concept because it comes back again in the 18th chapter, and there's only two different instructions that Krishna repeats twice in the Bhagavad Gita. We'll go to the second one later, but this is the first one. It's both located in the 3rd chapter and the 18th chapter. So again, this point of being true to our own nature is very important. The second step is to let go of the fruits of action. As Krishna tells us, you have a claim only to the action itself, never to its fruit. This is specifically 247 in the Gita. The best way to act, Krishna explained, is to give our best and let go of the fruits or desired outcome. This seems like a radical teaching because usually whatever we do is only for the fruits. Krishna explains of how being overly anxious about the results creates suffering. It is better to act with full presence and love, finding satisfaction in the action itself. Let the action as an expression of love be its own reward. I'll say that again. Let the action as an expression of love be its own reward. Letting go of the fruits doesn't mean we don't care about the results. It means we act with full commitment, but we understand the results of our actions lie outside of our control. We never know how things will turn out. We have some control over how we choose to act, but not over the results of those actions. Letting go of the fruits means giving up our attachment to something that has to happen in a particular way. We remain open to whatever the results are. By consciously surrendering our attachment to the fruits of our work, we free ourselves from the ego's need to claim success for what we do and from the ego's fear of failure. This brings out the best in us. We're much less likely to suffer crippling disappointment if things don't go as we had hoped or planned. By contrast, if we're fixated on trying to force an outcome, it usually brings us out the worst in us. Our ego flourishes and we're caught in a cycle of want and frustration tied to our own story. We lament about the past when things haven't gone as we desired, and we're fearful of the future. We're not able to live in the presence, with presence in the field of now. This is bewildered action, or action that binds us to suffering. Krishna then discloses the third component of karma yoga: make your work an offering. Krishna explains one who offers his actions to the divine, having let go of attachment, isn't affected by misfortune, as water doesn't cling to a lotus leaf. What a beautiful teaching. Making whatever we do an offering of love, an act of service, we purify our being. We're released from misfortune. In taking this third step of karma yoga, we cultivate an attitude of devotion and a mood of service in whatever we do, bringing out the best of ourselves. This is a life-changing approach. The work we do no longer binds us. It becomes the means by which we develop what is most valuable and fulfilling to the soul, sacred love. Like all great teachings, this sounds simple, and it is. Throughout our life, we've reinforced our story through our actions. This has a binding effect. Yet our actions, if skillful, can also have a releasing effect. This is karma yoga, the yoga of skillful action. Ostensibly, Duryodhana and Arjuna are on the same battlefield, engaged in the same activity. But Duryodhana is acting in a way that binds him further to his story, while Arjuna is urged to engage in karma yoga, which will release him from the historian, help him cross the dark night of the soul. So that is the end of this first section into the third section of the book.
Nice.
Any comments or any thoughts? So the rest of our discussion now moving forward will be unpacking these three concepts of being true to our nature, letting go of the fruits of the desired outcome, and making our work our offering. Yeah, please, Ajani.
Yeah, I can when I forget this knowledge, I can get tied up in engaging in my work for my own benefit, which can lead to some gratification when things go my way, but can lead to a lot of dismay when things don't go my way. So it's a very precarious way to operate in comparison to making my work an offering.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that a mentor kind of, had advised, he was giving a class, is that, if we look at our actions, one of the things that he talked about is that, from our actions, do other people benefit, or are we taking other people with us, along the way? So again, that was just one way for me to zoom out and look at things that I was doing on a day-to-day basis, was its ability to benefit others, but also, are we engaging and also being inclusive of other people? And are we taking, are we trying to kind of bring up other people as well in our actions? So thanks for that, Ajani. Anyone else wanted to share anything on what they just heard or from this section that we read?
Just the line in discussing that, let the action as an expression of love be its own reward.
Mhm.
Like I flagged that in the book, and I read that section again and again, because that's just it. Like it's just the action. It's just in the being. It's just in the loving. It's in having that compassion. It's none of these outcomes. And I just love that. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we've talked about before, there was a great teacher in the tradition of Bhakti Yoga, and he says there's 4 different factors that impel us to act, and the lowest is acting out of fear, and then above that is acting out of a sense of prospect, so getting a result. Even higher to that is acting out of a sense of duty, right? That, I feel a duty to do this, but the greatest platform to act from is from the platform of acting out of love, right? And so just even seeing that kind of gradual progression is really nice, because I think all of us start at some point from the fear platform, but to see that evolution within ourselves and how we can move up that ladder is really, for me, one of the ways that I try to even use as a litmus test for progress in my, in my day-to-day life and actions, is going up from fear to prospect to duty to love, right? I think it's a great template. And again, Tiffany, I think it just speaks to this point, let action as an expression of love be its own reward. So
it's like that little mantra. It's like, when you're in doubt, what would love do? It's like, that's to ask yourself about anything. What would love do in this situation?
Great reminder for all of us moving today. So everyone, that is, if anyone else has any last points, that's all we had that we were going to share today. Again, this concept of karma and action, to me, is really, really practical for our day-to-day lives. And I'm really looking forward to unpacking these following chapters that come.
Really wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for everyone again who joins every week. It really is a joy to discuss this, to unpack this, to hear from others. I really enjoy it, and I really see that so much has come from it as well. And just to let everyone know that Ida was supposed to be here, but we have our second session with Ed scheduled. It's not going to be this Friday because a few of us are at the retreat that we have planned. But also, if people haven't noticed, the times in Eastern time hasn't changed, so it also changes the time for him, where we're only 4 hours. Eastern time's only 4 hours behind the UK, and after this weekend, the times will be changed again. So we're hoping that the schedule with Ed will be scheduled for not this Friday, but next Friday.
And then we can, for the retreat, it said that some of our calls were going to be broadcast, some of the teachings. Is that right?
I think we're going to be trying to do that. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if part of our Dharma group might want to be in on those.
Yeah. We'll definitely, you know what, I will share the schedule with others, and for the places that we have good connectivity and Wi-Fi, I'll definitely make an effort to broadcast.
Mhm. Okay, nice.
Wishing you all the best for this retreat. Wishing
Thank
you
you.
all the best. Yeah. And I was telling, Hiba, I was telling Ricky, and he said, why don't we do it somewhere in Europe next time? I said, no. Bring it to Dubai.
I would
I know,
love
I
to.
hope that's near to Bermuda.
A little closer. Yeah.
Ajani, where do you sit? Where are you? Are you in Toronto?
Yeah, I live very close to Richmond.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm downtown Toronto.
Okay. Lovely.
All right, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank
Have a
you.
Take care. Bye.
good day.
Bye-bye.